Well, hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I want to wish a posthumous birthday to Ronnie Montrose. Now, anyone who knows guitar knows that Ronnie Montrose is one of the greatest men to ever pick up an electric guitar, so versatile across so many genres, beloved and respected by the hard rock audience, the jazz fusion audience, and people who respect the supreme talent it takes to do sessions, because sessions are where he began. And one of his earliest sessions was on a wonderful Herbie Hancock album, Mawandishi from 1971. Really, really great stuff. And of course, Ronnie Montrose plays on it. He did then a lot of session work with Van Morrison, including on the wonderful album Tupelo Honey and St. Dominic's Preview, two wonderful albums of Van Morrison's sort of golden age. He played on what many people consider the finest Edgar Winter album, They Only Come Out at Night, and also played on the song Power of Love from Gary Wright's wonderful Dreamweaver album, which we've talked about before. He became the namesake of a kind of hard rock band. I would say you could call them a quintessential hard rock band of the 70s. And this band was, of course, Montrose. And on the first two albums, the world got introduced to the man who would become the most famous alum from the band. And this was, of course, Sammy Hagar. They recorded a couple of other albums after Hagar, which were, really good as well. He returned to jazz fusion in 78 with his Open Fire album, and shortly thereafter played some gigs in Japan with Tony Williams, one of the finest drummers ever. The man I would consider the inventor of jazz fusion, along with Miles Davis. The great Brian Auger played organ on that album. It's a bootleg of a live concert, so not an album, but it's on all the streaming services now. So I definitely recommend it. And then he moved on to back to the sort of hard rock scene, but with a slightly more AOR friendly band, but with a lot of progressive leanings. And this was Gamma. And they did three wonderful albums between 79 and 92 before reuniting in the early 2000s. Really, really good stuff. Now, Ronnie Montrose was someone that loads of guitar players admired. And there's even a connection to Eddie Van Halen beyond the Sammy Hagar connection, and that they both did session work for Nicolette Larson, the singer who achieved quite a lot of popularity in the late 70s and early 80s. He continued to do a lot of session work and guest spots throughout the 90s, including some work with Sammy Hagar again, work with the wonderful Glenn Hughes. So many interesting people. He was always a very troubled man. He was never particularly gregarious. He had his demons, and sadly they caught up with him in 2012 when he took his own life. But in spite of that, he had a very long and incredibly fruitful and diverse career across so many genres and so many styles of playing, from being the hired gun to being the special guest to leading two wonderful bands, and then a solo output outside of the bands that was really, really digging back into the jazz fusion scene. Just a wonderful, wonderful guitarist, one of the very best of all time. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.